Yeah, welcome everyone. This is our first talk for IntelliKey's Experiment 1 speaker series called Speak to Me. And Facundo here is going to dive deep into our world views with his workshop called Cosmovision and help you really unpack, like, why do you think about the things that you think about in the way that you think about them. And Facundo, before we turn over to you to take us down that journey, I'm just wondering, who are you?
Alex, thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Well, I am a human being from Colombia, living in the Caribbean coast at the moment, trying to create a new way of life for me, my family, my soon to be born daughter, Lucero. So we have been doing this kind of experiment of our own to change how we've been living, trying to live in the rural area of Colombia and have a different relationship with nature. I'm an anthropologist. I've been working in peace building, and I'm trying to find ways to be part of this movement of change that we can see all around us, in so many places, so many people, so many ideas. Just putting, our small brick in this huge path that we have to work as humanity. Thank you for the invitation. I was really glad to see, to get to know IntelliKey and see what's about, because I felt it resonated so much with what we're doing.
Yeah, thanks. And maybe because I think all of you guys, except for Karim, who's currently at Traditional Dream Factory with me, the rest of you guys will all be at the first experiment, and it might just be a nice moment to say, hi, where are you from, a sentence about yourself, just to get to know each other, and then we'll dive in.
I can be the first one. Hi, my name is Camille. I'm from Lisbon, and I'm a product manager looking forward to putting my skills to use to a different purpose and to question a lot of my beliefs. So thank you for organizing everything, Alex.
Thank you.
I can step in. Hi all, my name is Bart. I'm from the Netherlands. I'm currently staying in a hostel. We'll fly tomorrow, so that's why I'm in this kind of improvised place. Was the best place to do this call from. And I'm really looking forward to this experiment because I believe that we're collectively stepping into the unknown, and it's important to start experimenting our way into the future until we find things that work. So thank you.
All right, hi, Mareile. I'm from Germany originally, but left Germany a long time ago when I was 19, and have lived pretty much all over the world, and the last 3 years in Portugal. And I'm very much looking forward to this. I'm really open and curious and expecting at the same time. And I think the next 2 days on my agenda, I'll just be busy with sorting out my family and my life so I can leave in peace on Friday.
Good job. Good luck.
I'll go next. I'm Alexandra. I'm currently in New York, where I do film and advertising. And I think the biggest thing that drove me to this experience was my desire for a sense of purpose, but also reconnecting with nature, because I've been in New York now for 10 years. And COVID, I think for a lot of people, made them realize how much they do need to be, at least for me, interacting with my environment, a green environment more. So that's what I'm most excited about.
Thank you. Kelsey or Kareem, you guys want to, the K guys down there?
Yeah. Hi everyone, sorry I'm a little late here. My name is Kelsey. I come from the US. I've been living in San Francisco for the past almost 3 years. Also in Boston. I'm currently in Portugal
Oh, you're already
And
here. Welcome.
I'm here. Yeah. So let's see. Then there was a question of what drew me to this experience.
That wasn't a question, but you can answer that question.
Oh, okay.
It was an invitation of whatever you wanted to say.
Oh, okay. Well, one thing that stood out from Alexander's comment that also really resonated to me was all about connection. So connection to myself, to other people, and then connection to the natural world, and starting to feel the rhythms more of nature and being outside more, all of that. So in a bundle connection is what drew me to this experience.
Thank you. Karine, do you want to say hi?
Yeah, I didn't know if I got to go since I'm not coming, but yeah, so I'm currently at the traditional dream factory with Alex. We're at opposite ends of the hall. I'm myself Swiss. I live in Berlin, and I'm currently working on a bunch of regenerative projects and exploring communities in Portugal, and curious to see what this hour and a half has to offer. So let's find out.
All right, Facundo, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Alex. I'm very happy to see this diversity. I was hoping some Latina will, be there as well and represent, but hopefully next time will be so. I'm going to share my screen so we can get into it because we don't have much time. I really want to get to the end of it, so we can get the most of this. Can you guys see my screen?
Still cut off a little bit.
Yeah, I'm fixing it now.
Better, yeah.
Should be working soon.
Yeah, I think this is it.
Cool. Can you see it now? Full? All right. Well, first of all, I want to say thanks to Alex and you, all of you, for being here, sharing your time, giving your time. And I want us to feel comfortable in this and be willing to step in being uncomfortable. We're going to be talking about our perceptions of reality, our worldviews. So there is no right or wrong here. Whatever that we are is what we're bringing forward from this. So please feel free to share, from your heart. Let's be respectful to others. If we have different opinions, that's the whole point. So it doesn't really matter. That's what we want to start to learn, how to take advantage of difference instead of difference to become, a wall that separates us. How to make it a bridge that can help us to create something bigger that we could create by ourselves. I wanted to ask you all why you are here in Enteleki, but I'm going to go to the next activity actually, so we can start with the worldview topic right away. Cosmovision is just the way how we call it in Spanish. I really like it. I think it sounds beautiful, so that's why we left it in Spanish. And we put a little bit of my worldview, my identity into the whole thing. Have you guys ever played this game of clues when you were a kid? When you got these images and you have to say what was it about? You can actually open your microphones. It's not many of us, so you can just leave your microphone open and share right now. I wanted to ask you, how would you name these categories? This is just a warm-up game that will help us to get into the exercise, but how would you call these? What name would you put to these boxes here? What can you read from this image?
The first one numbers and the second one senses.
Senses. Who else want to get
Just
a,
worried about the intellect, the brain, of course.
yes, intellect, brain. You have to excuse my spelling in English, it's horrible. just ignore it.
For me, the last one makes me think about like systems, collective.
Systems, collective. Someone else want to give it another or a interpretation of the whole thing? A wild guess.
It kind of feels like different layers of reality. I mean, that's what wild guess, yeah, you said so.
Oh yeah. I like that, and it is kind of like that. We're going to come back to it in a sec, but we're going to leave it this like this. We're close to what we're trying to show in this image, and different levels of reality. You know, the collective, the brain. You know, it's all related to what we are going to talk about and what we are presenting in this picture. What is the worldview? What is worldview? Cosmovision is how we make sense of reality. You know, it's like the glasses you put on and how you interpret everything that is around you. But it's how you transform all these things that surround you through your smell, your touch, you know, what you taste, what you see, is how you make sense and how you put that into something that it has meaning for you. It's like the landscape that we create in our lives, you know, is how our mind gets trained to understand reality. It includes our prejudice, our beliefs, our values, and has a very, very, very important role in our identity. Before globalization, you know, before when the world was not so big, you know, with cultures tend to be located in their own area for thousands of years, you know, they just have experience with others through trade and commerce, but there was not this movement and this connection that we have right now. The worldview was a kind of a straightforward process to build, you know, it depended on local culture, family, you know, the religion, maybe your school, and the personal experience that you had. This, for example, is an image of the worldview from Europe in 1800s. The world was in the center of the universe and the human was in the center of the whole creation. Here in the next one, we can see an interpretation of the worldview of indigenous people, of the Americans. In the left, you are seeing an image from Amazonian cultures. They have different layers of spiritual realms, and humans are kind of in the middle and they relate to one and another. And what happens in our level of reality is connected to what happens in other levels of reality. On the right, you can see another culture. This is from the Andes. And we can interpret a different sense of the role of human beings. You see human beings here portrayed in a more circular way, in a different kind of, not layer, you know, but more like, how would you call that? Equal kind of relationship. And this next one, in the left one, we're seeing a Buddhist interpretation of reality, the Eightfold Path to Dharma, and on the right, the Yin and Yang, which is part of the Tao culture. So when we come back to this image, this first image that we're showing is actually just an interpretation of reality. Here we're using the matrix to represent reality, which is kind of a paradox. But then the next image is our senses, which is the bridge in which we acquire all this information inside of us. All the information that we have outside is the way that we connect with the other world. In the third image, we see different brain structures. And this is a way to show different kind of worldviews. And on the last image, we see the result of those worldviews. So what we want to show is how this reality comes into us, you know, in a brain that is already structured by our context, our worldview, and creates different results. We can be seeing, experiencing the same thing, but the results are very different. What we think about, our reactions are going to be very different. And this is what we want to be talking about. I want to ask you all, how have you built your worldview? But before that, is it clear, the concept of worldview? Do you guys have a question or have another interpretation of it that you want to discuss before we continue?
I think it's pretty clear what you explained.
Okay, cool. So my next question is, how have you build your worldview? Before, as I said, it was very straightforward, it was more simple. Now is way more complex. So I would like to hear, you know, some of the places where you have been building your understanding of reality. Where do the belief system that you have come from, your values, just mention some so we can have an idea of where you guys are coming from.
Well, I think my worldview, for me, the answer is really clear. It's been built through traveling, through actually seeing the world and living in very different cultures and different places, from Europe to Asia to big cities to remote mountain landscapes, and always being in touch with the people there. So for the last almost 30 years, I've been seeing the world in its reality. So that has, of course, shaped my views on my religion, my beliefs, my culture, and everything I teach to my kids.
You are like a living example of the beautiful side of globalization. Eh? I like that. Cool, cool. Who else wants to share? Where have you built? How have you built your worldview? Where does it come from?
I can share.
Right.
I think it has been a lot of different things. Like, I think a lot came from the internet, reading things. Later on, meeting a lot of people, and also doing a lot of inner journey, inner reflection, discovering myself, understanding myself. That played a major part. And I think in general, in the whole journey of like taking in new information, it's really about what resonates. So these were kind of the things that led me to the next step, you know, finding things that resonate, integrate, and then see, okay, what comes from there, and like develop my own kind of, yeah, from this integration, figure out, okay, what do I conclude from this, or what can I extrapolate from this? And that kind of indicated the next step and next direction for my search. Then I went into that direction, and then I found new things that resonated with me. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then add that to my worldview, and then from there again, see, okay, where can we go next? So I think that's kind of how it developed for me.
Awesome, man. That's very cool. That's very cool. And that part that you mentioned, what it resonates, is so important, you know, because we have access to so much information. What clicks and what doesn't, you know? How are we doing this filter? And that is related with our own view per se, you know? So we build our worldview based on the worldview. Is kind of like a circular exercise. That's very interesting, Bart. Thank you. Who else wants to share?
I can share something.
Go ahead.
So when I think of worldview, I kind of think of it in two parts. I think of when I was growing up in more of a sheltered living situation, and then me becoming aware of that from like this internal push to seek something more, something else than the way I was growing up. So that's when kind of part one became a past. And then I think I've been embarking on part two now for a few years. And trying to develop a worldview, kind of following whatever is coming to me and is picking my interest, and trying to see that through. And I think part of that comes with trusting your intuition, and through that also you can kind of see when maybe you hear an idea and it doesn't really resonate with you, and then you can kind of pursue that to start thinking and like, or apply critical thinking to that to figure out, okay, well, what view do I have about this? And yeah, so taking in a bunch of experiences, meeting different people, and being open-minded through that, I think has helped build my worldview in this phase two.
That's really interesting, Kelsey. And when you talk about that, I was thinking, well, we humans always have this journey, for understanding, for making sense of what is surrounding us. But before it was so limited, no? Now you had this calling and you started to, you went into the world with just an open mind. Before it was so hard to access information. Bart is doing it through internet, how amazing is that? That we can use internet to get into, help us in this inner journey, in this search that humanity has done since, we look at the stars and thought about what the hell was that, That's so cool. That's why it's so cool to be alive today. We have this opportunity that is unique for the human species. It's the first time that we have this ability. Someone else wants to share, where does the worldview come from, your worldview?
Sure, I'm happy to share. I think that some of it was also a response to how, I guess, my identity was perceived. So it's sort of, and I guess like identity, like based on kind of maybe superficial factors. So like gender, sexuality, race, and country, and sort of what the, how that's perceived as in like a lot of the stereotypes around that. And then you have that as input, and then you just kind of, you respond to that, and you sort of react to that, like willingly or unwillingly, and then you can do the work to readjust. But I definitely think that there is a reaction to how you are perceived based on these checkboxes.
That's our identity, Karim. No, when we feel our identity is at risk, we create a strong reaction. It's something that we're going to be facing. You guys are going to be facing during the experiment. Our identity being challenged, or values that define our identities be in the discussion there, and it's going to be heated. It's good. That's part of the whole thing. I like that you mentioned identity, because it's going to be something that we will have to have in mind during all this process, this journey that starts today, but it will go until you go into this experiment. How my identity is reacting to others, how I am reacting to the perception that others have of me. How do I create alliances, for example, or why do I feel that I clash with someone or their ideas? Is someone else there missing? I think it's all of us. Okay. Someone, Alex or Camille, do you want to share, or should we continue?
I can quickly share.
Go ahead, yes.
So I think it's mainly on people around me, I think, and the experiences that I had. But I definitely feel it a lot with like the people that are around me that then really define my worldview.
How important is the people surrounding us? That's so key. That's actually the first, one of the most, I guess, important aspects that we get from the outside, our interaction with other human beings and other beings in general. Thank you, Camille. Alex, I think you're missing. Alexandra, I mean.
Yeah.
Alex, go ahead.
I think he's talking to you, Alexandra.
Okay,
I'll
okay, great.
rename myself Alex. So make it easier.
Okay. Shape my worldview was most likely, surprisingly, I would say like religion and spirituality were some of the two biggest things, because and like the familial unit as far as being a child. And then I think as I grew up, more my environment, my city, New York, and in pursuing higher education, all those worldviews and philosophies, still always going back to like some sort of spiritual core center, have been the biggest things that have formed my worldviews.
Thank you, Alexandra. Yes, religion, spirituality is one of the main ways how through history we have built our worldview, and it played a major role before, and now we are into this juncture looking for different ways to connect with spirituality, sometimes without institutions or trying to avoid what institutions can make of spirituality. But it's just such a huge part of us, you know, of this human experience. Alex, do you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's like, it's a continuous and iterative cycle. I mean, I think like childhood put a certain amount of things in there, and then, you know, in school you learn a certain ideology, a certain way of thinking, and then traveling disrupted a lot of that and made me question a lot of like things that I'd been taught. And being around a lot of like being around people from different backgrounds has been really useful in that. And then just like, I don't know, it feels like it's constantly evolving. Even like 2 years ago, I probably had a pretty different worldview than I have now. But then there's like baseline things that are harder to interrupt, like the things that were taught in school and taught by family and taught by community at a younger age are harder to identify and interrupt, I think.
That's something very cool that you mentioned, Alex. It's constantly changing now. You know, before it was a straightforward process and it was kind of fixed. But as you all shared, it comes from so many different places. Right now, it's more like a puzzle that we start to create. You know, bringing pieces from different parts of the whole thing. And sometimes the parts don't fit. Sometimes we have contradictions inside of us. Sometimes it's difficult to reconcile some aspects of our worldview, and that's part of the process. But as Kelsey, you mentioned, now we have this opportunity, you know, to do this journey in a much more profound and open way. So before, the knowledge was so hard to access, you know, it was for the elite. Now we have all this technology, this opportunity to travel around the world or talk to people from different areas. So we start to create a much more complex worldview. And that's beautiful and challenging at the same time, because it's easier to arrive to conclusions, to be in accordance with someone that shares your worldview. But we have this multi-layer, multi-pieces, multi-colorful worldview in one room. You know, you guys are going to be doing this experiment and you have all these experiences from so many different places. One book that you read, you know, a movie that you saw, the people that you met. It may be challenging sometimes to arrive to a same objective or arrive how to achieve that objective. But at the same time, you have the power of all the knowledge that comes from all that worldview, all that diversity, to create more innovative ways, you know, to accomplish that objective. We're going to go into breakout rooms, but before, I want you guys to take a look at this. If you have maybe a pen, or you can take a screenshot of this for a sec, so you can have it with you. These are just some suggested categories from worldview. This is not like a science. It's just a way that I did for myself, how to organize my self-analysis of my worldview. So one is the higher understandings, what do I believe about God, death, good and evil, existence, what is true for living beings or for sentient beings, if we want to expand a little bit the concept. What do we think about human nature? What is our human nature? That is common to us. It doesn't matter the time, the culture, the language, our identity, what is true to humanity itself, and what is true about me, the worldview that I have of me in relationship to others, of my role in the world. I would like you all to write down one belief, one understanding, one opinion, one view that you have for each of these categories. We will have 3 minutes to do that. So you can actually get and discuss it in a breakout room in a little bit. But I have 206 here, 207, 210, we go to breakout rooms. All right? I'm going to stop sharing.
Maybe leave that up until we go into breakout rooms, just so we can. Do you want us to go to breakout rooms now or in a couple minutes?
No, let's wait a little bit until everyone does the reflection here. Let me get this. We had some issues with my internet here at home, so we couldn't work it out as we planned, but it's working.
What is existence again?
What is true about living beings, about existing sentient beings, if you want to expand it, not to living beings, but sentient beings. Okay, are we ready? Kinda ready? Can you help me, guys, to create breakout rooms of max 3 people? But you're going to be discussing in the breakout room. I'm going to write it here on the chat so you guys have it. So share your beliefs with others, reflect how similar or different they are. why are they similar, different? Is it because of your country of origin, age, religion? That's like whatever, you know, your travels, something that you saw, someone that you spoke to. And do these differences have an implication for the experiment they're going to be embarking with? We will have 7 minutes to do that. All right, you have 7 minutes to discuss, and we will come back.
Hold on 1 second. For some reason, the breakout rooms aren't popping up for me. You guys want to take a minute more to work on your notes, and then I'll work on being able to send you in the breakout rooms.
You guys have any questions maybe before we go to the breakout room, or comments?
I just like this very fundamental inquisition.
I've been doing it before, you know, bringing it here. I've been doing it on myself, and it's been really interesting. Sometimes I don't know, I discover things about myself that, oh, really, I get this from my mom. You know, it's like, wow, it's weird, man. It's interesting to dive in to why I believe in what I believe.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah. And I think these are all very interesting topics to discuss, but many things you don't very naturally talk about.
Exactly. We never discuss about this. And it's such an important part of who we are, you know.
Exactly.
It will help us, you know, in a better understanding of each other.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of these things, they can be touchy subjects, you know.
Yeah.
When we start talking about God or death. Or, yeah.
In Colombia, we say, I don't know if you guys have that over there, but we don't speak on lunch about religion or politics. And it's so sad, man, you know, why? You know, it's so amazing to be able to discuss it, just because we have get into this mindset that talking about different opinions it just ends up in fighting. Yeah. But it doesn't have to be, you know, we have to stop that idea of convincing others. That's not the whole point of discussing, it's just getting to know each other better.
Exactly. Well said.
Yeah, I don't know if the breakout rooms are going to work, so we might have to do this as a group. I'll keep trying.
Let's do it as a group.
I don't want to wait. I don't want to make you wait too long.
Let's do it here because we are not that many, and I'm actually really interested to see what comes out. So who wants to go first? Who wants to talk about, you know, these touchy subjects, as Bart just say, about God, death, you know, good and evil?
Yeah, maybe I can start with something.
Go ahead.
For my understanding, as a human, something I have never understood, and so that also shapes my belief of existence. Is I am not afraid of death, and so I generally somehow don't understand why, as humans, we are so afraid of death. Of course, I understand the logic behind it, but I always think we are born with the understanding that we will die. So what's that whole big deal always about people being so worried about dying? And for me, that has nothing to do with a belief that there is something after death that I'm looking forward to, or religious connotation. It's just something that feels very natural to me, to just not, I don't know, I can't explain it, but I feel death is overrated in humans.
Well, I'm not going to comment on that, so I'm gonna wait who's going to comment on that. This is the time for you guys. I'm gonna shut up for a little bit so you guys actually discuss, but that was really interesting.
Do you want us to respond now?
Yeah, the idea is for you guys to discuss about your beliefs. This is why you are supposed to go into a breakout room without me or Alex. So I'm going to turn off my camera even.
I once had, I think I asked this question to someone, and I can't remember in what context, but they were like, they told me that they had this fear of being like floating in the void forever alone. And they said that death could be that, and that was a very specific fear that they had. And I was like, oh yeah, I never thought about that. So I guess it's one of the scenarios that you could make up in your mind. And that wasn't mine. That was someone who told me this. So there you go.
What comes up for me is that some people say that instead of people being afraid of death, that they are afraid of never having fully lived. So,
yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of kind of cliches that we can dive into, or things that we've already heard, or had discussions about, all the things that people say on their deathbed, and the regrets of not having loved or not having done certain things. I think what interests me is less the personal stories, because I think that the personal stories of people make, of course, a fear of death somewhat understandable or believable on an individual basis, like that guy who's afraid of floating in the void. What interests me more is why, as humans, as a collective of humans, where death has always existed as an inevitable end or beginning of something, why there is, well, especially in Western culture, I guess, we cry, we moan, it's terrible. There's other cultures where death is perceived slightly differently. But yeah, like, what's the origins of this? Or I don't even know what I'm looking for, but it seems so absurd to me. I wonder if there couldn't be, a reverse world where it's like, well, we're born, we live, we do stuff, then we die. It's, I don't know, just a point of discussion, I guess. Or maybe I'm the only one who has ever, has this thing of.
Oh, I can totally resonate. It's just
wondering.
I have no clue how we ended up at this point, and we got so afraid about that.
I've thought about this a lot too, if I can. I kind of think it could possibly be twofold. Like, from a biological point of view, it behooves sort of us and our clan to extend our lives and live as long as we can. So maybe that's why medicine or like pharmaceutical industries have more so opted to extend our lives, and the quality of life isn't necessarily better. I can't speak to that, but we know that we are actually truly living longer. Possibly it could have to do with that. And then also, I think religion, again, spirituality, especially Western religions, which I can speak to, maybe the concept of an afterlife, if anything can happen to us, losing our loved ones, losing our possessions, we like to hold on. Like, it seems as if the Buddhist mentality is very much so about being okay with the present and learning, letting go as part of your journey, versus I feel as though with the onset of personal possessions and land and homes and then McMansions, we want to accumulate more in life, and the more attachments we have in this life, the more afraid we are of dying, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I like that as a, I mean, that's thank you. That's an explanation that works for me in a way, like something that I can take on and sign off on, that need to accumulate and that attachment to things, and then because that is then that fear of letting go, or that not wanting to let go is then something that goes beyond death. Death is just one thing, but I think that runs throughout us as humans, of not wanting to let go or give up on something we have. So I guess life is part of that.
And I think there's, I was also thinking about it a lot recently. And in a way, I can't really remember how I got to this conclusion, but I guess what is the closest experience that we all have to dying? It's being born. And maybe some of us are afraid of being born again. Because deep down, we remember how painful it was. Yeah, in a way, it's like I guess birth is the most intense trauma that anyone has experienced. That could be an explanation.
I'm going to stop you.
Yeah, I was
there,
afraid
guys.
so.
Yeah. No, go ahead, but you finish this one. I just want us to talk a little bit about the rest, but
I understand. Okay, I think I got something here. What I think is that current society holds this very strong belief that we can control life. And that is like this very hard mirror that shows us that we're not, and that makes us very afraid. Because it shakes this very, very deep belief that we have.
Man, I wish I could be in Portugal with you guys and just spend one whole night just talking about this. It's so interesting.
You would be so good in the experiment.
Yeah, I'm already sad that I'm not going to be there. But look how interesting this is, and we're just touching the surface. Just a couple of things, and there are so many implications to any of the things, to all of the things that you guys are saying. The question that I have in mind, for example, is, do death, what happens after, is a result of how we lived? Does that tell us to live in an ethical way? Does that mean if we're living in a community and doing this experiment, is better for me to behave better? Otherwise, there are so many questions that arise from here. I want to go to the next one, which is the beliefs that we have about existence, about being alive, about living beings. I put there sentient beings because in some worldviews, some cosmologies, there are sentient beings besides, humans and animals, So I'm leaving it open for you guys to discuss. What are your beliefs in this area?
I wrote down the belief that the universe is full of life.
As in other life forms and aliens and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know in what way, but there's more life than just here on Earth.
We were having an interesting dinner conversation the other night, Karim and some of the other people were here, and the idea that we have a specific classification of what life is, right? And that's what we're searching for, this carbon-based life form that needs a certain type of environment to exist in. But what if life is so much more than that? And in other situations, life is based on other things, and perhaps even on this planet there's life that we're not counting as life. Yeah, just throwing that out there. Our worldview even comes into how we define what alive is.
Exactly.
A belief that I have that I've been questioning lately regarding other beings is that I think we as human beings, we put ourselves as superior to other animals, when in fact we are just an animal as any other. So that's
Yeah, I believe that as humans, I think we take ourselves too important. So in that respect, I give it, I agree with you, Bart. I give it all the openness for there being other life out there on a personal level. The other life out there in the universe doesn't really interest me. It's not something that I'm like, spend too much pondering over, wondering about, needing to know. But yeah, why not? Chances are, I probably agree.
Some of the people we haven't heard from, what are your thoughts on the nature of existence?
Did you say me?
I was just saying, anyone that hasn't gotten a chance
Sorry.
to share.
Can be you.
I wrote that we are all part of, in quotes, nature as we so see it. So existence is in every little thing. And I like the perception that I went to of thinking then at the whole universe and what else is out there beyond even what we can comprehend. So that kind of took me to another place.
I think that we like to think of sentient beings as like, we like to think of like one being as one unit, but we don't really think of it as like a system really. And I think to me, when we talk about life, like to me, life is inherently a system. And I think it's interesting to kind of shift it to that, in the same way that like you wouldn't say that like a red blood cell is a living being. It kind of feels incomplete. Well, I wish that there was that kind of urge of seeing as a being as life as something incomplete, rather than looking at it at a kind of more, I guess, macro level.
I like that idea with a system. I wrote everything is connected, and I mean that quite literally on an anatomic and a molecular level, and I strongly believe in energies that we can't see and that we haven't fully scientifically been able to explain yet. So yeah, I love the idea of thinking that we are part of a system on all levels, and that these systems exist everywhere. And often I think, yeah, if you go, I can imagine if you're into permaculture and syntropic farming and these things, you can dive really deep into how these systems are connected in nature, which of course makes you wonder how we can find that same kind of connection as humans that feels more natural and less contrived, made up, constructed. I would be curious to see if we can find ways to connect in an organic way, in a natural way, symbiotic way, without our brains. I don't know if that's possible.
I like what you shared, Karim, and it made me realize once again that we as human beings also consist of billions of other living animals inside of us. So these in a way are also sentient beings. And it makes me wonder how their sentient beingness influences our experience as a sentient being, right? Is it a separate or is it all intertwined?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, thinking about this existence, like, and everyone's opinions on existence, then how does that scale up back to like the idea of like higher understanding? Like if this is the thoughts about existence, what would that then mean for higher understanding? Questions of God and spirituality and like all of that.
I hope you continue these discussions there because I see there is still so much to talk about. What about human nature? What is a belief, a strong belief that you have about human nature? And we have been touching a little bit about human nature because we're part of the sentient beings. But specifically of human nature, what are your beliefs? What is at least one belief that you have about us humans? Something true, independent of your culture, your age, you know, the time you were born.
I have a belief that we as the human species have the most emotionally rich experience of all life.
I don't know, dolphins.
Yeah, I feel for that. There's a lot we might not know still of how other beings feel or process emotion.
It's true. But indeed, which animal or being on Earth would feel more than a human? That could be a question.
Well, we don't really know what we feel between each other, right? Like if you try to describe an emotion to me, how do I even know that this is the same emotion that I feel when I talk or think about that emotion? So how can we just decide or scientifically decide that whatever connection animals have, plants have, whatever, are not some sort of emotion that maybe is not in the same, exactly the same type of emotion, but a connection of some sorts. I mean, isn't an emotion a connection really between your brain, the experience you had as a human, and then that connects to an electrical impulse that gives you a feeling? These electrical impulses exist everywhere in nature. Why wouldn't they translate to something that comes close to an emotion?
I mean, I think, Maria, I don't know if I fully understood, but I'm going to try and respond anyway. I do think that there is, I think that feelings can be, like I'm trying to like distinguish feelings and emotions. I think feelings can be transmitted. So if I feel something and I, you know, my body language, like I think that you can possibly feel the same thing. And I think that that can reverberate and really be transmitted kind of one for one. And then I think I also wrote that I distinguished that from emotions, which I wrote are cultural compositions or groupings of elements across the emotional, physical, spiritual, and intellectual bodies. So like I think if I was listening to this really interesting talk that said that like cultures invent emotions and you can intelligently clump together concepts, words, events, colors, you know, to feelings, and then you can invent new ones. Like FOMO or nostalgia.
And it's interesting how certain cultures have certain words for emotions and other cultures don't.
Yeah, saudade in Portugal is like such a big cultural concept. Can you define it? But like, I'll let you define it versus me.
little hard, but it's basically when you long for something that was in the past. Kind of.
It's like nostalgia, but it has so many more layers on top of it in the culture.
Forbearance doesn't exist in Spanish, and I really like that, you know, that word, that feeling. Very quick, one true about yourself, but we're going to write it down in the chat, so we are quick about it, but I really want to hear something very deep, or read something very deep from you. A true, something that is true about yourself. Very quick, each one of you. Alexandra as well. You're being too quiet, Alexandra, and your camera is off. We cannot see.
Oh, sorry. One truth about myself.
Yeah, write it down in the chat, all of you guys. An explorer, yep, cool.
Took the self a little bit more spiritual.
Yeah, man, that's it. Yeah, cool. That's all good.
Big question. I don't even know if I fully believe what I wrote is always true. I'm an explorer, except for when it comes
we
to
are constantly
restaurants,
changing.
where I will eat at the same restaurant over and over again and have the exact same meal over and over again.
I don't have a true identity, Alexandra. Do you want to share a little bit about that? That's interesting. Do you want to share about that?
Yeah, I feel as though I'm so ephemeral, as far as there aren't very many things that I can attach to myself as being a true piece of myself outside of my relationships with other people, if that makes sense. So I relate to who I am in a very profound, substantial way by the people that surround me. So that is always changing. And so therefore I don't have much of a claim to an individual identity / I'm not sure it really exists.
Well, does someone want to comment on that? That's very interesting, Alexandra. Does someone experience something like that?
I'm still
Yes.
processing. I think yes.
I feel it's a bit related to what Karim wrote down as well. I'm gonna carry on, but you know, identities we don't have one identity. We have so many layers, and they change with whoever we are. I think that's something we can all relate to. That's part of the consequences of being a social animal, you know, as we humans are. Okay, we're going to go to the next. We're going to do this a little bit more personal. Let's take just 2 minutes doing this. Take one of those beliefs, choose one that you want to dissect a little bit. One of those beliefs that you have. And let's go deeper in the analysis, you know? Where does it come from? Do I have a root, something that is an iconic reference to it? What are the characteristics of that belief? And we share a little bit about that. What are the fruits of that belief? And I had a plus and negative sign here. What are the ups and downs of those beliefs? I'm going to give an example with myself. For example, service. I have this idea that I have to serve others. I was raised by that, by my family. My grandparents have this idea, but when I was thinking about it, I actually have it is more from my mom. It's actually something that I got from my mom. The iconic reference that I have in my culture is Jesus Christ. Even though I'm not Catholic or Christian, but the idea of Jesus is so embedded in my culture that it doesn't matter that I am part of that religion or not. It's still there. You know, my reference, my referent is that. The characteristics, I was taught that I had to use my privilege to serve others. Otherwise, I would be just profiting from this privilege, you know, and and I would be just part of the problem instead of being part of the solution. The fruits, I'm someone that constantly is looking for justice. Is something that is really important for me, and I get a sense of purpose with the work that I do. The downside is that I have this ego trip of savior complex, and I think I can save, I can help, I can do for others, and it's just a thing that I'm trying to deconstruct, so I don't get into this thing where I believe I can do for others, because it ends up just being like self-entitlement. It's like you put yourself in a higher position without even realizing it. So I have this plus and bad sides of this thing, and as I walk into it and analyze it, I do an effort to work more consciously to the plus side and avoid all the negative side. So I would like you to choose one of those beliefs that you have and dissect it, take it into pieces and try to analyze it. Sometimes we don't have an answer for one of those categories. Sometimes the iconic reference is a really weird and unexpected one. I, for example, have this idea of friendship, and my iconic reference of that idea of friendship comes or is rooted into this movie Stand By Me from the US, with the little kids. They go and search for a dead man. And I don't know what that movie clicked in me so hard, so deeply, and that's my reference for friendship. So go ahead, dissect your worldview, that little aspect of your worldview. We will have, let's do 2 minutes, 3 minutes most, and we come back to share a little bit about that. Are there any questions here? Cool.
We can see your WhatsApp, Facundo.
Yeah, maybe you can share your examples. Yeah.
So sorry, I just realized I was on mute. I was speaking to myself all the time.
Aren't you always?
Okay, are we ready? Let's share a little bit what you guys found out. Was it easy to do this exercise? Or maybe you found something unexpected there?
I think it's super hard because, you know, you start thinking first what you want to start with, and then the more longer you think about it, the more complicated it gets. And before you know it, you're like, oh my God, this is going really deep. So no, I don't think it's easy.
Yeah, I never learned to think about beliefs in this way. But it's an interesting inquiry.
I can share mine. So I really struggled during the whole time of the exercise, and just the last minutes, a belief about myself came up, and I was like, yeah, this is very much like me, and I started thinking, why do I have it? So I have this belief that I need to be productive. I need to do stuff, like to stay chilling out on the sofa is wrong. I think this comes a lot from my grandma. The iconic reference, just maybe someone that like, oh, the idea that someone who works brings value, which I'm not sure where it came from. Some characteristics is that, yeah, being busy is good, which thinking about it obviously doesn't make sense, but it's this belief. When the positive side is maybe that will give me energy to do things, but on the negative side is that, well, sometimes if I step back and really think about things, I can do better, well, things differently, and that relaxing and stopping is also important.
Nice. That was the whole picture. Cool. Who else wants to share?
I can share. So for me, I looked at my belief that I am a people pleaser, and the seed of that came from my mom and family system through that. And the root of that, I think, is my need to be seen as good or accepted by other people. And that some of the characteristics that can show up is that I will like put limitations on myself or put other people's needs before my own constantly. And then that can lead to like some identity crisis where I don't really even know what I want because I'm just kind of taking on pleasing other people all the time.
Do you feel like there's also positive characteristics that you've gotten from that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think there's definitely a caring side to it. And it's kind of like a second nature to help somebody out or just be kind. So I think, yeah, there are positive characteristics.
That's really interesting how you guys just shared, it comes from your mom. The one that I share, it comes from my mom as well. How important are, the legacy of our parents in us, or the people that raised us. And where do they got that idea, where did they get it first and then transmitted it? Is sometimes, as Mariel said, is hard to do this tracking back, because sometimes we don't know where this idea came about. That's actually the video I was sharing for you all on the WhatsApp group, but it's for you to check it afterwards because we won't have time to do it right now. But someone else want to share? One last one, because we still need something to do that I really want to get into.
I can share.
Go ahead, man.
Yeah, so I had this more metaphysical belief that the self is the center of all experience, which has a seat in Eastern philosophy and personal experience. And like the iconic reference for that for me is Alan Watts.
Oh, cool.
And taxonomy, I didn't really know how to put the characteristics, but it's like a, I don't know, like a holistic approach, and says in a way that reality is created by our own consciousness. And the fruits of that for me are that it brings me empowerment. And the downside is that it can be confusing sometimes, because the mind can very hardly grasp this belief.
I get it, man, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And when you just said that, you know, about consciousness, consciousness creates the reality. So can we consciously create our worldview so we can make our reality more pleasant? You know, can we change our worldview so we make it, our understanding, more pleasant? If death gives us fear, maybe we can change the worldview. It's just a question not to answer right now, but something to think about. How willingly, you know, how can we direct that? Can we? Do we want to? Okay, we're going to go to the next one. Let me go here. Okay. There are external interests in shaping the worldview of human beings, of society, of cultures. You know, there are some that are like really far away in the past, some that are in the not so far away past, and some are we're living, we're seeing, we're being, you know, subject of right now. The thing is, no matter where they were created, many of them just carry on, you know, through culture, through our parents, you know, through traditions, through language, through religion and all that. I want to do this exercise with you all, so where we can think about one external interest that has in shaping our worldview, one from the distant past, one from the recent past, and one that we are living today in the present time.
What do you mean by external interest? Like,
well, it's open for interpretation, you know. Maybe you guys have an example. You can just, you know, drop an idea and we can discuss it if it's where we want to go or not.
I would throw
I don't
out,
want to define it too much. Yeah, go ahead.
see if this resonates, but there was like, I forget which of the emperors of Rome decided that Christianity was a good way to control the rest of the empire, and decided to like bring, like, because Christianity was just like a small cult, and they brought it in as a way to like expand their reach and kind of co-opted it.
Yes, exactly. That's the things that we're looking for. That was in Roman time. That was in Rome, you mentioned?
Yeah, it was a particular emperor, but I don't remember which one.
Well, and Western culture is very influenced by Roman, you know, culture. So we have inherited some of those leftovers, you know. Other examples that you guys have that will bring about, you know, coming to mind.
Capitalism.
Sorry, Bart, what was that?
Well, capitalism, and especially the fact that like capitalist societies won recent wars, which makes that we believe that capitalism is better in a way.
Yeah, cool. Another one.
Finding fire.
What was that?
Finding fire.
Finding fire. What do you mean?
Well, when the caveman first found fire and then became interested in fire as in being able to control fire.
So what's the worldview related to that?
Probably that we're superior to others, to other animals, because we can control the fire. Pyromania.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to get to. What else?
I'd encourage you guys all
Romania.
just to throw out thoughts because there's no right or wrong answer here.
Yeah, exactly. Just go ahead, whatever comes into mind.
Individualism.
Individualism, yes. What else?
Agriculture.
What would be the worldview behind agriculture?
Property.
Yeah, that could be.
So we can stay in one place for a long time, that we don't have to move around anymore.
And that hunter-gatherers are primitive people.
Cool. What else?
Maybe like social and economic classes.
Yes.
Definite, like
What
the
else?
idea of borders and territories and countries.
Yes. Borders, yes. Nationalism, yeah. One more. Let's try to find one for the distant past and one for the present time that we're living like today, very much so.
Have maybe for the distant past the idea of family, like the definition of family. What is our family? The idea, yeah. And
Yes.
as well, like it's the mom and the dad and the kids and the brothers, and that's of the family.
I think related to that is tribe, because that plays out a lot in modern times too.
Tribe, yeah. Okay, we're going to leave it here, but I will ask you guys if it is possible to go 5 minutes before over the time, so we can do one more activity. Yes, okay, cool. What I would like to do, but we won't do it right now because we don't have the time, is to do this same exercise, you know, to analyze this seed, this root, the taxonomy, and to see the plus and the downside. And here I will call upon this concept of Thailand culture, which is Japdi. I really love this concept. You can talk about it with the monk more extensively. He's from Thailand and I hear it from him. And it's about seeing the beautiful side of everything, you know, even if it is suffering, if it is bad, if it is wrong, but try to find a beautiful side of everything that happens to you. So I want us to do this exercise of finding the beautiful part, the positive part of all of this, you know, agriculture, social classes, borders, capitalism, individualism. It requires a lot of strength, you know, it requires a lot of creativity because sometimes it's not as easy, you know. But for example, we can here add something like human rights. You know, human rights. Human rights are the first semi-global effort of humanity to alleviate or mitigate suffering, human suffering, you know. And there is a thing about institutions that I want you to read because it's relevant to what you guys are doing in this experiment. Though someone wants to read it with a better accent than me, or maybe a less strong accent.
Shall I read it?
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Since man is a social animal, institutions are necessary. We should interpret institutions not as a refuge that protects us and permits us experience, but as a stimulus to make that experience awaken, grow, and be nourished. This obviously requires a considerable degree of maturity. We must be able to see institutionalization as a constantly open process. Only the conservative fossilization of some experiences ends in becoming an obstacle. Of itself, institutionalization is a necessary human process.
What are your thoughts on this quote?
Well, my first thought was, how are institutions defined? What does he mean by institutions exactly? Like my thought was like, what box do I have to put that in? That statement.
I had a
Cool, that's a good question.
I had a worldview body reaction to the word institution. I was like, oh, I don't like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like what other, can we have some replacement words that fit our different all of our worldviews? It's a strong word, institution. I think rooted in personal and cultural experiences.
I do kind of
I don't
like
know.
that this brings a different view on institutions, because like what happens with most of us, I think institutions has kind of a bad connotation. So I like this different view. Helps me to ease in on the word institution.
Yeah, this is something that is open for discussion. You know, we're not going to discuss it here, but what do we understand by institutions? Our worldview, is it negative because we have all these institutions, you know, doing evil things or wrong things with us, you know, with our money, with our taxes, or, you know, around the world? Or are they taking the idea of an institution and stealing it from us? So we cannot actually create institutions that are helpful for us. Like this author, he's saying, you know, institutions should be, you know, something that allow us, you know, stimulus our experience of growth to be nourished, not an obstacle. And what we have been living is just institutions as an obstacle. But in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, you know, institutions can be defined in many ways, and this is one of the things with language. Actually, just getting to the same definition is difficult. But an idea for me is an institution. What you guys are going to do in the experiment, what you guys are going to create, it will be an institution of sorts. You know, it's a experimental way of living. But this is for later on for you guys to discuss, reflect, or disregard. It says, no, definitely no institutions. I don't like this. And this is just for something to think about. I wanted to bring this about of our worldview. One, you know, because it helps us to understand us better. And this exercise of dissecting our worldviews is very difficult, but it's something that I will invite you to do in this process that you're going to be doing towards the social experiment that you will be participating upon. And hopefully later on, sometimes you will find, you know, this idea, wow, I don't know what I have it and I can change it. Or actually, I know where I have it and I don't want it in me. Or you can actually see where it comes from. I see it, my idea of Sarah is in my mom, and it's easier for me to see it, understand it when I can see it from outside. You know, sometimes it helps. So it's a way to get to know ourselves better and to create conscious change, you know, that we want to change, that we want to do. But it's also very useful because when you guys are going to be discussing and co-creating, it's very easy that we stay here in this level of positions, you know? What we propose, where we stand on, is just like the tip of the iceberg, you know, our position. But behind that position, there are interests, there are feelings, there are values, there are fears, and there is a worldview. So this is an invitation to go into this experiment with an open mind that I see that you guys have, but with very curious mind as well. Ask about, what do you think? Why do you think that? Where does it come from? Do you actually like, that idea that you have? And I want you to do, hopefully, this JAB-D experiment. When you disagree with someone and you really say like, oh, I don't like where you're standing, I don't like your position, I don't agree with it, it's not part of my worldview and I just don't like it. But do this crazy exercise of finding what is beautiful in the position that the other one is taking, trying to find what is good about it. That's what I wanted to do this exercise with capitalism, for example. Try to find something beautiful in capitalism. If we feel that it's bringing a lot of suffering into human life and life in general, let's find something good about it. It's just a mental exercise that we can train our minds to, so we can understand the other side better and maybe just co-create something, getting the best of all of us. This is called polarities management, if you guys want to check a little bit more about that. You guys have heard about this dilemma between nature and nurture and that, right? Where do you guys think this worldview stands here in this diagram? Where is it located in this diagram that I'm showing you here?
In the middle?
In the middle. Yes, exactly, Bart. This is a creation of many things. And we here today, we just discuss a little bit of nurture, this part of our experience in life. But we didn't talk about much about, human nature and how our human nature, how our mind is constructed by evolution, how that defines our worldview as well. And that's part of some worldviews, how your spirit, is also part of the beliefs, creates the beliefs or the dispositions that you have toward others. Nurture, this part is the easiest one to reflect on. Nature and spirit is much harder, it's much deeper. Buddhists are very good on it, through meditation and deep reflection. But I just wanted to show you that this is just like the tip of the whole thing. This is very complex, and it's something that we can be doing during all our lives, and it will bring a lot of fruitful understandings. Just to finish, I want to share this with you. And I feel this clicks with some of your worldviews. And it's a quote that I found that I really like, and I think it relates to what we are trying to create, you guys, in this experiment in Enteleki, we here in Colombia with my family and so many other people. Someone wants to read it for all of us?
I can read it.
Go ahead, please.
I am the continuation of my parents. I am the continuation of my ancestors. This is very clear. I do not have a separate self. Looking into myself, I can see my father, my mother in every cell of my body. I can see my ancestors in every cell of my body. I can see my country, my people in every cell of my body. I can see that I am made of many elements that can be described as non-me elements, cosmos. I am made of non-me elements, and when these elements come together, they produce me. So I am that. I do not have a separate existence. I do not have a separate self.
Thank you, Kelsey. Well, this is all from me, guys. Thank you all for your time. I would like to hear just some final thoughts.
Amazing start. Thanks for the facilitation.
Thank you, Warman. Thank you, man.
I'm looking forward to more and to be physically together. Yeah, it's too bad you will not join us. but hopefully soon in the future. We'll send you love.
Yes, please do, and pictures.
Thank you for the great presentation and for setting the really good tone for this experiment. It was really good.
Thank you, Camille.
Yeah, thank you again. I enjoyed this exercise, and definitely a great start to next week.
Yes, I also want to thank you, and it's given me a lot to work with prior to starting the experiment.
Thank you all guys for being here. I'm really excited that this is happening. Hopefully we can do this, you know, in Colombia again. I would really love to have you guys here. It's hard for me to leave the country, you know, dollars are so expensive in Colombia. But this is a beautiful land. I'm very happy to see what comes out from Enteleki. Alex, thank you very much. I really hope that this is useful for you guys for what you're going to embark on. Hopefully, you know, you are leaving this with more questions, you know, than answers that you can keep pondering upon. And soon you will have the meeting with the monk, which is a really interesting person. I really enjoy these sessions of asking anything. Many of the things that we discussed today, we can just ask and see what he responds. They have a beautiful understanding of life, of reality. So I think it will be interesting for all of us. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Facundo. And yeah, guys, we're definitely gonna go deeper into a lot of the stuff that was brought up now. And I don't even know if you know about the monk, but we're gonna have an Ask Me Anything session with a Buddhist monk who's in Thailand that Facundo helped us arrange. So you're gonna be able to like bring some of the questions that are coming up during the experiment to him to get some of his thoughts on it as well. And yeah, I'm really excited. I've only met Camille in person, but I'm excited to meet all of you in person soon and that we get to live this together.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Looking
Thank
forward
you.
to meeting you all.
Great
Bye.
day.
Bye-bye. Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you.